The end of the year is nearly here, but that still means there's a little bit of time left to feign outrage over something that's completely fucking stupid and try to pass it off as some legitimate issue. Now, I wanted some way to lead into this tweet thread because I think it might be the dumbest tweet thread I've read all year long, but I couldn't really come up with a good way to lead into it. So let's just get started. Sarah May, who is a software engineer, founder of RailsBridge, director of Ruby Central, and architect at Salesforce, tweets, "Last night, I posted about the term domain-driven design, frequently abbreviated DDD, which is a common large bra measurement in the US and often part of dirty movie titles. I've deleted the thread and replaced it with this one. Sarah, you should have left the thread deleted. There was probably some sensible feeling within you that was saying, hey, this is retarded. Don't tweet about this. What are you doing? But instead, you kept it going. Now, for those of you who don't know what DDD is, or domain-driven design, let's take a look at the Wikipedia page. So it says, domain-driven design, or DDD, the problematic issue here, is an approach to software development for complex needs by connecting the implementation to an evolving model. Now, as you can see here, there's a bunch of shit. Tools, practices, a bunch of other abbreviations and initialisms. As you can see, there might be some overlap. When you have this many letters, if you can't see what I'm looking at right now, it's that. See all those acronyms, all those initialisms? You don't think there's going to be a little bit of overlap with another industry that might happen to be porn? I mean, let's take a look at this. Relationship to other ideas. We have object-oriented analysis and design. We have model-driven engineering, MDE. Imagine that. All these people come up with a concept, a design pattern, an approach to solving problems, and they shorten it because it's really easy to just use that instead of the entire term. Until somebody like Sarah comes along and says, this is an issue because porn could also use it. They're not referring to this. They're referring to tit sizes, but it's still a problem because my brain goes there. And if my brain goes there, even if you didn't intend it that way, it's a problem. Imagine what she would say if she saw this, the naked objects pattern. Oh, God. The actual, just nudity right in the name. Or what about domain-specific language, DSL? If you guys don't know, DSL also stands for dick-sucking lips. Now, as I said, this was the dumbest tweet thread I've read all year, and we're only one tweet in. So let's continue. Sarah says, having a softcore porn reference in the software field is still problematic, whether or not the creator intended it. And it's hard to imagine that I'm the first one to point it out. Not really, though. It really isn't that hard to imagine. You might be the first one to point out an issue with domain-driven design because it's abbreviated as DDD. It's not that hard to imagine, Sarah. You might be the only person until December 13th who'd ever made this an issue, ever. But maybe I am the first one to point it out. Let's assume so for now. I got a really interesting range of responses, including, he didn't mean it that way, which is the only response here. He didn't mean it that way. Any reasonable person would know this. I could walk into a fucking kindergarten classroom. They would know. They would get it. But a software engineer and founder at RailsBridge, director of Ruby Central, and architect does not understand nuance, cannot understand that domain-driven design has nothing to do with pornography. Then Sarah continues, it's too much of a stretch. Basically works on my machine. No, actually, this is too much of a stretch. It's so far beyond reasonable expectations in the workplace that I decided to make this video. Look, this isn't you saying, hey, there aren't enough of this race or there aren't enough women in the industry. Why could that be? We might disagree on the reasons why, but there's a lot of reasons. There's genetics, culture, family, society, the school you went to, the classes in your school. It's a complicated issue. There are a lot of variables that play into that. This is just fucking dumb. I mean, if you don't think it's too much of a stretch, have you ever in your life, Sarah, asked somebody for AA batteries? Did you use AA? Did you use AA? Or did you change it because that's also a cup size and that would also be a reference to pornography, even though you didn't mean it that way? Imagine me sitting in the office with Sarah. I'm working through something, or I'm trying to solve a problem, and I see two solutions that could potentially work. And I go, "Hey Sarah, what's your point of view on?" Oh shit! It's 2018, guys. Oculus Rift exists. Point of view porn exists. Wasn't what I intended, but I must have obviously been making a softcore porn reference when I asked Sarah her point of view on the problem I was trying to solve, right? Or imagine somebody sending you a message on Slack and saying, "Hey, could you update the SM links on the website?" Where they obviously mean social media. But no, instead they probably meant the SM in BDSM. It was definitely a porn reference. They just wanted to find a way to slip it in at work. Oh, fuck. Slip it in. God damn it. I can't make this video. I'm sorry. Sarah continues by saying, "What's most fascinating about the deleted thread for me, and don't worry, I have screenshots later so you can see why, was that I got hundreds of extremely emotional responses very quickly. Because what you said was fucking stupid. That's why, Sarah. This isn't that complicated. I had no goal with the original tweet other than to incredulously point out that a concept called DDD actually existed in software." Like, she's just blown away as to how somebody could have ever done this. Again, like, point of view, AA batteries. Sarah, give me your response. How do you handle that situation in real life? Do you just stop using those words because somebody somewhere might interpret AA in batteries to be a porn reference? Remember, your intent doesn't matter. That's the best part about this, Sarah. Intent doesn't matter. So whether or not you meant it like that, who cares? You offended somebody, change your words. And Sarah actually addresses this directly. She says, "In my original tweet, I indicated that I thought the creator knew what DDD stood for and left it anyway. That would constitute intentional exclusion. And people really couldn't get past that. All they did was argue with me about intent." Because it's kind of fucking important, Sarah. It's kind of the basis of everything in this context. If you could go back and get into his head and realize there was no pornographic reference in his head as he was coming up with this term, conversation over. Delete your Twitter. We're done. But instead, there's a tweet thread about this. I don't hesitate to say this, he didn't mean it like that. You just need something to bitch about. That's all this is. And I'm not the first one to think that some people just need something to bitch about. The Clean Code blog, Robert C. Martin, who goes by Uncle Bob, one of the few people in tech who are willing to, 1, be outspoken, but 2, write a blog post about it. You can archive this shit. And what does he say? Perhaps we should have realized then and there that the software SJWs were heading over a cliff in their aimless pursuit of something to be outraged about. Perhaps then and there we should have realized that the true goal of software SJWs was outrage for the sake of outrage and was no longer truly social justice. Now, I'm with Bob on this one. This is outrage for the sake of outrage, and I have no problem calling it that. And the only reason I'm making this video is because of how few people I've seen actually willing to publicly ridicule this and say this is stupid. I've seen in private, I've seen anonymous accounts do it, but not people in public because they feel like, oh, well, I can't. This would be like criticizing a marginalized person. I'm just going to look bad. Something like this needs to be ridiculed because if Sarah, who is, let's check again, the founder of RailsBridge, was truly committed to their goal of focusing on increasing diversity in tech, surely the fact that this website is in English is excluding more people than DDD is because it's supposedly a porn reference. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. And Sarah, if you're watching, you're more than welcome to come on my podcast to discuss this issue in more detail. But for everybody else, let me know what you think about this tweet thread, comment below, and I will provide a link to the thread so that you can read through it yourself if you actually want to. Thanks.